Neurodiversity is where you may think in a different way to a neurotypical person, and this may be in the way you communicate, it might be in the way that you learn, and ways you may perceive things around you, and many other things as well.
So I went through all of school trying to do things normally, and the thing was, I was often sort of referred to as lazy or complacent because it was clear that I understood everything because we would talk about it and I understood it, but then when it came to writing it down, it was always writing with me. When it came to writing it down, I would just write at such a glacial speed. And then when I got to Guildhall, I got diagnosed with dyspraxia and ADHD, and suddenly stuff made quite a lot more sense. So I suppose neurodiversity to me is specific to those two things, but it also reflects the fact that I think differently to other people and that they think differently to me, and we're both diverse, you know. It's not just me.
I discovered that my neurodiversity very recently, a couple of months ago, and after discovering that, everything was like, okay, now that makes sense. So it really changed your self-conversation, because if you're not aware that you're a neurodivergent person, you expect too much from yourself and you don't understand why you cannot do certain things. Seems like all the other people are doing very easily and you cannot, you feel very bad about yourself. I was really hiding my emotions. I'm like hiding my cry, my tears, and now I don't really hide them. If I need to cry, I cry, and it gives a type of freedom and acceptance, because this is who I am and I'm confident and I don't need to hide that.
Neurodiversity to me means a huge relief. So when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, I was 27, and at the time I could never really explain why I got overstimulated sometimes, or also my brain felt a bit like a pinball machine. And then actually knowing that there was a reason behind this and I wasn't on my own was a huge relief and a big change in my life.
I think as an artist it's advantageous because it means I can form ideas and make work that is original, is like, it's a different way of doing it. And I think sometimes when I've seen other neurodiverse artists of all kinds of disciplines, I've often I've liked it because it makes me think differently to how I naturally might, and I think that sometimes that's really valuable in art.
As an artist, it can be really fun, it can be great. There's huge benefits to it where there's things like hyperfocus, where in terms of learning music, because for me it's such a dopamine-filled thing, I can learn stuff quite quickly, I can focus and learn. However, I do also know that sometimes I can kind of want to learn everything too fast all at once and then things get a bit much. So I suppose it's a balancing game where there's some really brilliant things to it, but I have to just keep in mind when I need to try and pace myself, which is a huge thing I'm learning here at the National Opera Studio.
I could never work out why I couldn't instinctively, and that's important, instinctively move like other people, or why the natural gestures that I wanted to do, that just happened, were not what would happen to other people. And I used to find it really upsetting because you feel kind of broken if you can't do, if the stuff that is natural to you isn't natural to everyone that's good, or it feels like that anyway. So I think you have to find your path, because if you try and do it the way that everybody else does, you'll probably find it 3 or 4 times more difficult than them, and you'll only arrive at the same place at best, you know?
During rehearsals, it's like my mind works like closing the gaps all the time. So every time I see something is not really working, or like they're not fitting each other, I can notice that very quickly, and I can cover that up with something. Sometimes I share it, sometimes I don't. I can do some good offerings, and I'm really good at following things. One part of me hates constant things. Like doing something constantly is very, very difficult for me. On the other hand, a part of me needs like a soldier-like schedule. So there is always a fight between them. So when my mind is working too much for me to avoid that music, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna learn one bar, and then afterwards I understand that it's not really difficult to do, so it comes. But every time I'm struggling, I'm like, okay, every tiny step. This is a bit like more my coping mechanism.
Realities of being a neurodiverse artist, I think, is that there'll be certain obstacles in your way. Say it was like a Mario Kart racing game where you have all these obstacles. However, for someone who's neurodiverse, they might be all in a slightly different order, and it might be there's quite a lot more that suddenly pop along the way. I think it's just knowing that that's okay. Firstly, knowing that, you know, just because your process is different to a neurotypical person doesn't mean it's any worse, any better. It's just the way you work, and it might actually create something that makes you think outside of the box, which is really creative and fun. So I would say go with it more than anything.
I think what I've learned as a neurodiverse person is that there's nothing that's wrong if it works. I think just make sure you spend enough time making sure that you can find ways that you actually feel comfortable working and which actually work, regardless of what stage you're at as a neurodiverse person.
Main thing is you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. There's plenty of people in the arts who have neurodiverse minds, and also speak up. Know that in rehearsal situations, if you're having an issue, it's okay not to mask. It's okay to speak up, talk to a director or the assistant director, and they're more understanding than you'd think, very understanding in fact, and it's getting better the more that we communicate these things.